InnerSpace Explorers. There was a request for a channel video, so a video about the channel dive for a long time, but it was just not on my priority list. But lately there were more and more people asking if I could do something about it, because the one video that's on the channel is really bad. Reason is that the person that was responsible for all the videos during the actual dive kind of messed it up. So all the footage that we have is really bad. And then, I mean, obviously the focus was more on ISE and training and various things, so I never really got back to the topic. So, yeah, most people always ask, like, why the heck did you do that? And for sure not for a record. That was the last thing I was ever interested in. My motivation was simply I wanted to know if I can do this. When I was a kid, I used to spend quite a bit of time in England because my mother used to live there for a couple of years. And just close the gate here for the noise. So I think I was probably 8 or so when we were in Shakespeare Bay, and watched a couple of channel swimmers getting ready and getting in the water. And as I started scuba diving with 7, I was already in the sport, and that was probably the moment when I was like, if these guys swim through there and all the ships and everything, so wouldn't it be better to dive through it? And for some reason this idea just kept spinning through my head. And yeah, I mean, obviously back then there was no way of performing such a task, and then I grew up and got older and got more dives and got more experience. But then obviously, I mean, no proper rebreather systems, no scooters, and I mean, just no way to do a single dive without surfacing for more than 10 hours. And so yeah, it was just a dream. And then I think in 2010 or so, Patrick Bonnitzmuller from Bonix came to me and said, but I think we have a scooter that has the ability to pull you through the channel in one shot. And that's actually when it started. And then we started planning, and I just basically wanted to prove to myself that I can do it. So it was a long dream of mine. And that was the prime motivation. And then obviously the press jumped on it, and the PR people that worked with me for ISE back then, and everybody was like, ooh, we need to do something. And then it became kind of the record. For me, it was never a record, because a record for me is a competition thing. So diving for me has nothing to do with competition. So a runner that's faster than everybody else, that's a record. Or I mean, everybody's climbing the same mountain, but the guy who goes there in the shortest time or stays for the longest period of time or whatever, that can be a record. But diving for me is recreation, is enjoying the underwater world, just enjoying being underwater. So yeah, as nobody else ever did it, I can't see the record, and yeah, that was clearly not my motivation.
Pretty incredible, really, that you did manage to do it. Can we talk a little bit maybe into the planning of the process? Obviously there would have been quite a lot that went into it, quite a lot of research and everything beforehand. Also just dealing with authorities and just getting permission to do it. Can we talk a little bit about that? How difficult was it to do, and just in the planning phase, really?
Yeah, absolutely. So by the way, I would like to introduce Aaron, who's sitting next to me. Who's first of all the cameraman, so that should also be good for all the people that usually complain when I do videos in the car. So and he's doing kind of an interview with me today, which makes it a bit easier for me to go through the entire process. Well, the planning was obviously extensive, and we took it really serious, which you can see in the fact that the dive originally was planned for 2011, and during the planning I realized there is an issue. Actually, we had some crazy vibrations on the unit on a couple of test dives, and so I said, well, I don't do it. As simple as that. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. If it's not perfect, I'm not going to do it. And then obviously everybody was like, look at this guy. Yeah, it was obvious. It's just blah, blah, blah. He's not going to do it. Whatever. I did it a year later. It was a perfect unit. So the planning was extensive, and we took a lot of care. The main thing was obviously the navigation. So how do you navigate through that channel and reach a certain spot, or at least try to reach a certain spot without surfacing? So we had tons of different ideas. We talked to a couple of different companies, from towing a GPS buoy to actually we had a company, it was like an independent robot that can navigate by itself, and if I could follow this, and it's all kinds of ideas. And in the end we skipped all of this because everything kind of involved a surface vessel. Even that buoy would have been a surface vessel, and we talk about the most populated shipping lane in the world, and obviously you don't want anything that's crossing it on the surface, so trouble would have been, 100% there would have been some issue. So in the end, actually, it was a watch and a compass, and the big advantage is that so it's not the squeaky car that you hear, it's the squeaky dog in the back.
So I guess you could say with that, it's really the classic Achim Schloeffel way of just sticking to the basics and knowing what you're doing, really, right?
Yeah, if you want to, if you want to say so.
Being confident in your own skills, or I mean.
Well, yeah, and I mean the big advantage is that there's tons of data about the British Channel. I mean, you know exactly how the current's running, when it starts, when there's slack water, and so on and so on. So you have all these tables. I mean, it's probably one of the best known waters in the world because of the extensive shipping. And also the shipping can be tracked quite easily. There's actually, you can check that online. It's like a highway, and you can pretty much say this vessel will be there at that time, and so on. And so as we know how the tides were running, how strong the current will be, in which direction it will flow, I decided to rely on that, and then just a watch and a compass basically. So take that course for that amount of time with that speed, and then comes slack water, so you correct the compass course for that amount of time in that direction, and so on and so on. And that worked pretty good. So in fact, I hit the point at Cap Grenet pretty much on the spot, and then just during decompression I was swept away by the current a little bit, but I'm still not dramatic. So it actually went way better than I expected it to be.
And for getting permission to do the dive, was there much in way of that?
There was a funny thing. Obviously, I thought, we should talk about this. So there's this Channel Swimmers Association. They take care of all the people that want to swim through the channel, which is still a big thing today. And so I talked to them, and they were like, "Ooh, diver, stay away from us." And obviously they had a couple of bad experiences. I think there were 2 or 3 people that tried it before that had issues, especially as they tried to stay as close to the surface as possible, and they had us like a boat that was staying with them for safety reasons, etc. And so they said, "No way. We are not supporting this. You're not getting a boat from us. Just, we don't want to be involved in this at all." And so then I talked to harbor authorities in France and England, and they were like, "It's not our thing. Talk to customs." And so I went to customs, and customs sent me to the Navy, and the Navy sent me back to the harbor police. And in the end, I was like, you know what? I just put my passport in my pocket and do it. And it's Schengen. It's Europe back then. And so just. Nobody was willing to. I mean, nobody said it's not allowed, but nobody wanted to give me permission. So I was like, whatever. I just swim through it. I mean, nothing nothing illegal to it. Basically, actually, one of my friends said he bets a good dinner on that I will be arrested when I go there, because obviously there was quite a bit of press releases up front, so people knew I'm gonna do it, and he said, I guarantee they will be in France waiting for you. But I mean, obviously nobody knew where I'm gonna land, so that nothing happened, all was good. The funny thing is, Richard Branson actually kited over the channel like a week later, and he was arrested in France. So stay low profile underneath the waves.
Exactly. Now to a question that probably quite a lot of people are wanting to know, for all of our hardcore techies out there. What was the gear that you were using for the dive? I mean, you just mentioned that you were working with Bonex for the scooters. So
yes.
Can we talk about some of the other gear that you use, why you chose that particular gear, and so on?
Yeah. So the main thing for me, it's the princess. She's not in the movie, so she's complaining. The main thing obviously was the scooter, because I did not want to surface or change any scooters or anything, so I wanted a unit that from start to finish can do it. And it was this famous Bonex shuttle, so it's basically two military versions of the Bonex Discovery that were joined together on a rig. I'll actually put a picture here in the video, so for those who haven't seen it. And I mean, it was an experimental unit back then, and obviously for Bonex it was also good because it was kind of the ultimate test, and the thing performed for 11.5 hours without any problems, and later on was actually released as a military scooter. So yeah, that was the major thing for me. And then we obviously had the gas planning. So the most obvious thing to do was using a scooter, was using a rebreather. And you know, I love the Kiss, so that's what I used the Kiss rebreather. And we had the scrubber a little bit extended, just to be safe regarding scrubber time. And I had a second Kiss as a backup, and same modification, same extended scrubber. And I was just thinking, there was one slight modification. Actually, the Kiss has the exhaust valve, or the overpressure valve, on top of the unit, and we made a special bottom and put it on the downside, because the disadvantage of the Kiss, so to speak, especially on a dive like that, is that there's no real water trap. And so my idea was that if the water collects on the bottom, I can I put overpressure on the unit and press the water out, which I didn't have to do, and I actually went back from that modification afterwards, because that overpressure valve was always clogged with the fine debris from the soda lime. So it was great for that dive, but in everyday use, it's nothing that I would recommend. But that was basically the only modification that we really did. Otherwise, it was a standard Kiss, everything redundant. And so I checked the second Kiss on a frequent base. If it's good, if it's fine. But in the end, actually, I think I was more than 10 hours on the first unit, and it performed flawlessly.
Yeah, wow. So obviously at the time of the channel dive, you're already probably one of the most experienced, I guess, divers around. Plenty of hours experience, plenty of dives under your belt. But still, this is a massive, daunting task. I mean, how do you manage the fear? How do you manage yourself, your own self-control, all of those kind of basic things? I mean, did you have anything that went wrong?
Do I manage self-control? Yeah, it's one of those questions that pop up every now and then.
I mean, are you scared? Were you scared at any point in the dive, or is this is your comfort zone underwater? I mean,
if you're not scared, you're an idiot. I mean, fear is something very natural. It's very good because it prevents us from doing stupid things that are beyond our comfort zone. On the other hand, I love to be underwater. I did longer dives than the channel dive, so the amount of time underwater was not an issue. What I was afraid of was actually running into something like a drifting net or something like that. That was actually something that I was afraid of, especially considering the speed that I was traveling with in combination with bad visibility. And I mean, in blue water or green water in the channel, you have a hard time realizing how far you can see because there's no reference, right? I mean, if you see an object somewhere, you can see, okay, this is far away or this is close, and then you get a reference of how far you can see. But if there's nothing around you, it's really hard to see that. And I had this one incident where there was like a shipping container that was drifting by, that I saw like in the last moment, and then I realized, oh, the visibility is not that good. And that was like a close call. I mean, not really bad, but that was when I realized, probably there's an issue. I always had issues with cold water. Actually froze my hands really bad when I was a teenager, and so whenever I get in cold water, I get issues, especially with my hands. And I experimented for quite a bit with different heating systems and so on. And the problem was that usually they fail when you need them. So in the end I decided to rely on proper underwear and multiple layers and not use the heating, which was good in the end. But that was something I was actually afraid of, that I'm like in the middle of the dive and I get so cold that it starts to create issues. Because I mean, being super cold obviously then affects your brain. You cannot perform properly anymore. At some point you start to shiver and probably cannot really perform on the level that you should be.
So prior to the dive, you'd done quite a lot of mental preparation, planning for for anything that might have gone wrong. Or
can you imagine myself sitting somewhere doing yoga?
Sitting on a beach somewhere doing meditation, I'm sure, yeah.
Actually not. I mean, especially back then, I was diving basically every day,
you knew what you were doing.
Yeah, more. I mean, it always sounds like I'm the big diver, but that's not the case. It was just a very natural thing for me to do. I just had to prepare for the special tasks of the dive and be prepared for all of this. So obviously I had quite a few cutting devices on different locations for the net. I mean, if that would have really helped me in case something like that would have happened is one thing, but it's also a bit of a mental crutch. You know that you're prepared as good as possible for stuff like that. But I mean, you asked for fear. That was actually what was spinning through my mind before the dive. The cold and the running into something.
Yeah, no, very, very good to know. So during the dive, I mean, 11 hours of what I imagine is quite monotonous, quite repetitive. It would have been fairly uneventful, I would assume, for the most part of the trip.
Yeah.
Or the dive.
What I try to do when I do things like that is I try to break them down into segments. Because I mean, if you're standing there on the beach 5 o'clock in the morning and you're like 12 hours, I mean that's horrible. So when I started, I was like, okay, I need to go over the incoming waves. I need to reach a certain depth of water. I just like get started, and that took me almost 45 minutes. I mean, when I went in, visibility was 0. There was heavy tide coming in, and so for the first 45 minutes, I was basically had my mask on my compass with a light on it just to. And I couldn't really figure out if I was moving or not. It was horrible. Actually, at I think 40 minutes or so, I was like, probably my ass is still sticking out of the water, and my team standing on the beach laughing. I mean,
yeah.
So that was like the first 45 minutes. Then, oops, yeah, there's suddenly the bottom went, and I was in clearer water, and I could see, and I kind of started the dive. And then it took a while to get adjusted, trim the scooter out, get everything rolling, and then mean, in the middle you have the Varn, which is like this huge sandbank that kind of, I mean, always it's like the middle part of a highway, just to give you like a picture. And actually the bottom comes up at some points to 2 or 3 meters actually. And so I hit that, so that was like also a mark for myself. Okay, I'm on the right way, my timing's good, that's where I'm supposed to be. And then I had these 2 incidents with ships. Yeah, and then at some point, I mean, you suddenly start seeing ground again. The ground keeps going up, so you know, okay, you're in the final phase. You start your decompression, so you break it down, and then it's actually same thing like decompression. When you end a dive, and you're like, okay, I have 3 hours of decompression. That's a very long time. That's a huge thing. So you break it down into segments. You're like, okay, I do my initial ascent to my first deep stop. Okay, then to my first gas switch, then. And so on. So you keep breaking it down, and you don't look at the entire time frame, and that helps at least me to get through these things. And that was the same as the dive. So in the end, it didn't feel that long because there was a lot of things to perform. I mean, you think about your rebreathers. You have a second rebreather that's not working at the time, so you have to check it frequently so it doesn't start to leak, suck in water, stuff like that. So you're busy.
Yeah. So you finish the dive, you come up, hopefully where you're meant to be. What's the reaction for you? Like, was there a big sense of achievement? Where did you end up? We've talked about it before. I think it's a pretty funny story. I'm sure that everyone would be interested. Yeah, just how was the feeling and the reaction?
The plan was that once I start decompression, I'm shooting a buoy because I know that I'm out of the shipping lane at that point, and in that buoy there was a little GPS tracker, so my team that was waiting for me in France could track that little device and then like come to the beach or locate me, and then support divers coming in, take the fucking scooter off me, probably get some water, a company. I mean, yeah. So when I started my deco, I shot that bag, and then I was waiting for the support diver to show up. Nobody. So I was drifting along there. Visibility was really, really bad. So I was swept along the ground. I had the scooter with me, stages, etc. So a couple of rocks that I bumped into, a small wreck of a fishing boat that I bumped into. And I was like, damn, where are these guys? So after decompression, I surfaced, and there was this huge beach in front of me. If you check it on Google Maps, Cap Grenée, you will actually get an idea of that. And again, there was the flood coming in, so I had the waves from behind, and the water was like less than a meter deep, but it was still like 200 or 300 meters of surf zone till, I mean, you could actually walk on the beach, but I had all this gear with me and there was nobody, and I obviously had no idea where I was. I mean, according to compass, it should have been, I mean, at least the right side of the channel, so no U-turn or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that was probably physically the most demanding part of the dive. I mean, after the dive, getting out there, I couldn't stand because the waves were always like flipping me over. I had the scooter, I had the 2 rebreathers, so I was kind of crawling, and with the scooters, the scooters were inflatable, at least the part in between, so I could make them positive. Actually, ruined one of the propellers and one of the shrouds trying to get all of this out, and in the end I was basically crawling out there on all 4 till I could get rid of the rebreather and then go back in and grab the scooter and pull all of this on the beach. And then I was sitting there and I was like, something really went wrong there. Nobody, it would have been funny, somebody walking his dog like, excuse me, which country? But I realized that obviously due to wave action, that GPS tracker that was in this box on the buoy was banked so hard by the waves that it shut itself off. So I was like, okay. So I tried to open that box, but I don't know, due to pressure, temperature, whatever, I couldn't open it. And so I started to look around for a stone to probably break the glass, because the container was like a housing of an old underwater light. And I couldn't do that because safety glass, no proper stones there, was a sand beach. So I was a bit frustrated actually sitting there on that rock for almost an hour. And then actually my team found me accidentally. So it looked like that tracker was giving a signal for a very short time and then it was shut off. So they had an idea that I obviously surfaced, and they were following a buoy that they could see on the surface, just driving along the road. And one of the girls had to pee and just stopped and then saw me, and the buoy that they were following was obviously a lost fishing buoy or something like that. So they basically found me accidentally, and then we figured out I'm actually on the right spot. And so navigation and everything worked out perfectly. But yeah, sitting there on this beach was a bit like,
where is everyone?
Yeah.
Where am I?
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's awesome. And the sense of accomplishment, achievement, was it a big one for you, or was it just a kind of just sitting there on the beach and hey, cool?
I mean, obviously there's relief and yeah, cool, it worked. I mean, I was freshly married, my wife was pregnant, so obviously if I would have had doubts, I would have stopped it. I mean, there's completely no suicidal tendencies or anything like that. So I was very confident that this can be accomplished. So it was not like doing something with a 50-50 chance and then that, yeah, I made it.
Yeah.
I was very, very sure that I could do it. It was a long planning phase, I mean, more than 2 years. Lots of test dives, lots of equipment testing, lots of thinking about emergency procedures, etc. And yeah, so of course, relief. I mean, something that you've been planning for a long time. You did it, great. Just it felt good.
Good to be able to prove to yourself that
exactly.
It was possible and that you could do it.
Yeah.
And I suppose, like you said at the start, I mean, when you were a young boy, and I guess maybe not having the full idea in your head, but just seeing the swimmers and stuff. So obviously, it's kind of coming around full circle and kind of closing that door, I guess, that you'd always wondered whether it was possible.
That's probably a good description. Yeah. Just it's a chapter in your life that you close, and you close it with a good feeling. So yeah, done finally.
Oh, that's really cool, man. Yeah, this has been awesome to hear about. I think we've covered quite a lot. I mean, otherwise this video could, of course, go for an hour, 2 hours if we got really into it. But I mean, if there's anything else that anyone wants to hear, or any other questions.
A lot of people asked about the solo diving aspect, actually.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because actually there was a lot of critics about that, because everyone was like, yeah, DR diving, ISE, and no solo, and you did it solo. And I mean, it's a very legitimate question, of course. And we thought about it. There were actually 2 people that said, hey, great, we're gonna join you. And I thought about it for a long time, but thinking about the navigation and all of this, in the end I decided to do it alone, because I couldn't see how you would maintain proper team communication and care for each other, traveling with that speed in that environment, taking care of two independent rebreather systems, the scooter, the navigation, potential issues with shipping. And so my feeling clearly was that an additional diver would add a lot of risk and a lot of additional task load that I didn't want to. So I decided to rely on equipment redundancy instead of a second diver.
Okay.
It was a hard decision, but in the end I think it was the right decision, because I mean, looking back at the dive, I think it would have been a nightmare.
I suppose you really would have had to have a great dive partner and someone that you were very much in sync with to be able to pull something like that off.
Completely, and I had these people, but still, I mean, we had speeds up to close to 300 meters per minute. And as I said, bad visibility, we would have needed a second scooter. And I mean, also the possibility for equipment issues doubles. So think about it, you have these 2 scooters, you have 4 rebreathers, something goes really wrong, so you have this guy, so what do you do with him? Tow him? shoot him to the surface, wave him goodbye. I mean, at that speed and this visibility, just one of these scooters, just a minimal failure, just a little bit of misnavigation, like you're checking something and you just separate a little bit, you're out of sight. I mean, how do you want to rejoin?
Yeah.
So, actually we experimented a little bit in a lake, and even there it was an issue.
Okay, so that was a decision that you came to after quite a lot of thinking.
Yes.
and trialing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it worked out in the end, so...
It worked out in the end, and obviously it's not a classical dive. It's not something that, let's go for a dive, and I want to do a solo dive. No, of course not. So it was a special thing, nothing, don't do this at home kind of thing.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, for me, it would have never needed that publicity. So, and obviously the publicity then also was like, how could you promote that? I didn't promote it, I did it for myself, and then obviously word was spread.
Yeah, okay. And it's a real shame that we don't really have much of the photo or the video from the dive anymore. Well,
we had this housing that was given to us by one of the manufacturers that couldn't handle the speed actually. So the water pressure pressing against it created issues. So there's no real good footage from the actual dive. We have quite a bit of footage from test dives from the unit. I'll actually put something in that video for those who haven't seen the other video. So we have an idea of the equipment and everything, and that hopefully gives a bit of an idea.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to add into the mix?
No, I hope that answers all the questions and is what people ask for. If you have questions to that, please comment in the comment section. Also check out the Patreon site. That's normally where we have the in-depth discussions and where we really chat a lot on a personal level. If you like it, give us a thumbs up, and hope to see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.